music, sound out, noise, etc., drawings, paintings, prints, sculpture. What's the difference music, sound, structures, convention, methods of receipt? Does it matter? Is it only the goal that is important? Commercial versus artistic? Or can those be the same things? Genre, pop, folk, vernacular versus abrasive, intense, cumbersome structures, and whether to avoid them or embrace them. Am I making fun of something? Ernest, what am I talking about? I love words and using them. Why work in sound versus drawing, painting, sculpture? Is it all the same thing, doing different things, or doing the same thing differently? Does this matter? Context, intertext, metatextual, indexicality, eroding signs and signifiers. I should read Bart, I think. Confusing the relationships between established or visible audible things presented as though they are meant to be understood, erosion of legibility through the application of processes, dissolution, dispersion of narrative through its execution. Still working with narrative, using some language and symbols tied to older work that carry through. Different visual audio result, too much time on the internet. What does it say? How do I communicate that? What do you think I'm doing? What should I read? Look at? What can you see here that I don't? What does it look, sound, feel like? From a post-IT note, emotional kinesthesia and connection, automatic writing, improvisational drawing, using defined elements in repetition, coding speech, sound, image into matrices of meaning, text as a matrix of meaning, color, space, shape, layers, what's written, how that meaning is subverted, how the final form of each is unique and what those do alone, in groups, in sequence, in a book, and how the format scale changes reception, meaning, materials and physicality, the means and ways of production, endurance, exhaustion, work, what feels like doing something, fluency, fruition and challenge, analysis, internalization, and getting over out school, detective work, unhealthy attachment, attachment theory, free child, adult, pretending parent, rigid rules, failing to, ignoring emotions, proficiency, properties, principles, creativity, dealing with rules and rubrics, directing study, practice, tools, information, my affinity for absorbing, dissecting technical information, problems, remembering and explaining, I'm good at asking questions and less good at answering them, sound, not just acoustic pressure, or vibrations that disturb the air, literally wading through an uncompressible viscous fluid all around us to attempt to convey meaning. How do we encounter sound in the everyday, in the gallery, at the concert, and how do these ways affect our reading of that work? How do we contextualize and categorize that work? How do we respond to it, private versus public listening as both creator and audience? We are inundated with both sound and advertising more than any people in human history. How we handle that, mental faculties, focus, what are the broader implication of this? How does one individuate on a self as a creator, listener, appreciator, encyclopedic appreciators of records, albums, music, sounds, DJs, looking indexically at sounds as elements in a collage to create a new permutation, and in that permutation is their out? How do we do that individually? How do we prepare ourselves for the things we chose to listen to versus respond to things that we don't? Psychic, emotional materiality of sound, neurology, cognition, not the physical materiality of sound, i.e. manipulations of acoustic pressure as a phenomenon. It is the emotional pressure that results in the body of the listener that result from a connection to certain types of produced subjective acoustic pressure. Music out is subjective acoustic pressure. To whom do I look for guidance in this endeavor? Well, what do I have lying around? What do I need to get to supplement? And what have I seen lately that's given me ideas that I could get? What tools? What skills? What past? What have I encountered recently? Do I just talk about this semester? I went on a trip and saw a great exhibition. It was relevant in terms of this class, cultural heritage, identity, and in terms of medium. In a recent committee meeting, I was encouraged to pursue writing as a part of my practice, to express a verbal sensibility which appears in all graphic forms with which I engage. Writing is drawing sounds, and words draw ideas. Drawings create images which can be words or something more directly simulacral to the way that we perceive our surroundings. But is the picture plane, not the page, the mirror through which we see the world and the way we look at words or designed pages? Is that not also a ground plane, a picture plane? Are we not anchored to a horizon in the way we perceive the world, the way words move across a page? the way images live in our minds behind the mirror of our eyes. I'm here reflecting on reflections and the reflections of those reflections through various reflective and refractive lenses and devices. Is the process of writing, of reflection, of thought not bodily, an external construct meant to be analogous to the way our minds construct meaning about events in an abstract way? Our senses are tuned to our experiences, to balance, to attack, to silence, to our environment. Is the same not true for the things we chose to feed our mind in the construct of words and language and how we develop our personal relationship with it? It's in out, in out, in out. It's secular, cyclical, spiraling towards something, over time without immediacy. Thoughts settle like a freshly built house, or like a freshly planted flower. They need time to germinate, to find their place in the infinite directions of friction in the mechanics of the soil where they are planted, entrenched or sat. Structures float, buildings float in soil, the way boats float in a body of water, wood or paper, ocean or puddle. Is this true of the safe houses for petty abstractions we plant in our minds? Surely someone else has thought of this, or articulated it better, or situated it in some metaphysical or historiographical or linguistic or humanist Gnostic canon? I recognize these may not be original thoughts, but they are nascent musings of a man who has had little use for citations and relied more on the big pictures of large collections of words to trickle through and settle among the other thoughts that generate on their own inside my head. It results in knowing things without knowing how you know things. Can you cite a thought, a feeling, a sense of something? That's the goal of making out right? To cultivate a sense or sensibility or voice or proclivities? How do epistemologies and cosmologies erupt and collide and congeal? How aware are we of these tectonics of thought, of the changes in our own minds as they occur? We aren't, not really, but we can see how the land has changed when we turn again to the horizon I mentioned before. But people are now sustained by Instagram fortune cookie psychologists and micro-diagnosing their every thought to the point that they no longer know what is legitimate, or a momentary lapse of their best judgment. It's easy to feel like a broken person when you feed your mind a bunch of echo chamber nonsense advertised to appeal to your strongest insecurities that govern the utter bullshit that propels the thing that keeps you coming back. I rely on YouTube and Google a lot. Nascent problems in sound and video out as pertains to YouTube, TikTok, Instagram et al. What are the symbol systems of social media? What qualifies as content? What qualifies as ads? Who is a creator? Who is a corporation? How much is it driven by markets, trending topics, popularity, petabytes of data? Does form only exist to perpetuate these things? The meme, the prefab or trending audio video dance. Way Twitter and socials media. An outworld outsider might consider sound out, video out, or performance to be lesser forms of more popular media. Sound out is shitty music, video out is film that lacks narrative, quality and structure. And performance out is theater with shitty writing. Noise, silence, presence, absence. The inherent musicality of sound is evident only in its documentation and notation. Alright, all of that said, what have I done this semester that would qualify as a project? What is something worth writing about? The book of texts entombed. The purchase of Gear Studio monitors are like glasses for your ears. How have I facilitated growing as a sound artist? Why have I gravitated in this direction and what did I leave behind? Start with getting over out school. Things I have done, and things I do. Where I started as a grad. Things I learned. Product production. These things are not products. They represent me seeking sustainability in my practice beyond this venue, beyond this funding. For something to be interesting or experimental, it need not be something entirely alien, entirely destructive to the form, to the structure. Experimentation in the sciences is done to prove or evaluate a novel questions, to clarify, to find the next questions within a given discipline in order to make. How do the structures of the objects and images I make inform or relate to the sounds that I make? How does that contribute to an environment or installation, and what does that look, sound, feel like? What is the goal? Who is the audience for creating, exhibiting things in this manner, and how do I assess them, obtain feedback, feed the practice further? What does the work say back to me? PVC tower, audio exciters, foam speakers, amplifier, multi-stage conversion of signals, stereo or mono, using cables. Do I make musical instruments? Digital and analog? Adding a piezo pickup? How to make software instruments? YouTube. Do I make a giant box and put enormous cables over it, with a box and a hole and a piezo? What have I made? What have I accomplished this semester? Describing the journey since November, plans for the next. Lyrics words. Unwind your wounds with words worn well, unravel your rivals with conniving convivial violations written in saliva, wound up in wobbly wounded words, wound up in wounded words, wrap yourself in wounded words, words worn well worn words too. Write writhing wrinkled rhymes, wounds worn well, torn all to hell, warm yourself with wounded words, well wound words worn around hell, wrap words around wounds to scorn their swell, bind your wounds in uneven words, wounds bound in wry words worked. Wisselia. An eye for sorry sights as soaring sights scurry off into the night. Open a shop and call it, as holes and elbows, Nelson's remnant meets, on getting things out and making things complicated. Emotional materiality, sincerity and the bullshit of the artist's press release, artist's statement, gallery wonkery, marketing nonsense. Look only to yourself and you will see the myriad ways which IAE, writ large, has made you weak and sad.